Okay, so I'll kick it off. This is our second town hall meeting, and upon reflection of the previous one, we sort of decided to change the structure of it a little bit. It'll be broken down into updates and plans, so that the update section is sort of a brief overview of what happened the previous week, and the plans is sort of a brief overview of what we're planning to do for the current week. And we sort of said as well that was because we don't want like the conversation to one particular agenda topic to dictate the whole conversation. We're limiting it to 10 minutes per agenda item at a maximum. So if there is any agenda item that needs more discussion, we'll allocate a separate time for it for a deeper conversation on that. So yes, with that said, we can dive straight into the agenda items. The first one is on the updates is the reputation and coordination tool research that Keaton and I have been sort of doing. Keaton has sort of done a lot of the work in regards to the research around the reputation and coordination tools. He's looked into a number of tools last week, and we've sort of evaluated that the best sort of tool to start looking at reputation is SourceCred, and we've started to look at testing that in a local instance or a closed instance rather, to test out the different features for SourceCred. And we've also looked into the coordinate to look at a good way of distributing compensation. So we're also looking into that. And there are a couple of other tools that we touched on, and we are also sort of doing a bit more research into this area. Keaton, do you have anything additional to say on that regard? Maybe a little bit about MetaCred?
Yeah, so yeah, like Hitesh mentioned, really just trying to dig into where the value is being created in these new data science workflows and how to accurately aggregate those and compensate people for them. So yeah, like Hitesh mentioned, SourceCred Coordinate seems to be a really good combination. There are some other tools out there that folks in the community have built, like MetaCred, which is specifically a combination of several different reputation and compensation tools. And I think that's the general direction we want to go, is looking at, more than just like how many lines of code are you pushing to a shared GitHub. My sort of budding understanding of these data science workflows is that there's a lot of exploration, and that a lot of the value happens when folks are communicating and doing this sort of exploratory work. So yeah, basically that's where we're at right now. We want to get something up and running so we can track people's contributions, be prepared to do things like dole out ownership of an eventual algorithm that gets published. But that being said, I think it's important to note that this is definitely going to be an iterative process. And throughout this, where we're building these tools, the direction is going to sort of come from the core team. But what's going to be really important, at least for me, is getting that community feedback, right? We really want people to feel like when they're in the process of creating value, that's being captured somewhere. So yeah, like I said, MetaCred is definitely pretty experimental. I'm in the process of actually reaching out to some folks in the community, particularly people who are pretty well versed in DAO ops, and just sort of putting up the feelers and seeing, hey, what's worked, what hasn't worked, things like that. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, like Hitesh mentioned, I've spun up the SourceCred instance locally just to see what it looks like. And then from there, I think we're going to move into a position where we're going to do a little bit more concrete testing and get some things up and running to start actually making sure folks' contributions are being tracked.
Awesome. Yes, that's agenda item number 2. Number 3 in the updates are pods. So we've only started sort of looking at pods and created. So just to give a brief overview of what we mean by pods is a maximum of 4 people in a conversation. That's the purpose of it is a specific topic to solve issues around a specific topic essentially. So we've capped the conversation at 4 people, and we've looked at a couple of different topics that we want to explore with different people. We've set up 2 pods right now in the last week. And we're hoping to start conversation with a few of the members to set up more pods and establish a sort of a recurring time for that. So that's just a brief update on pods. So it was sort of the idea of pods were conceived last week and started implementing the idea late last week, and we'll start to create more pods around different topics this week. Then, Richard, do you want to give a quick update on what happened in the hacking session last week?
Yeah, sure. So I think we came to a consensus on the type of model that we want to build. Like they're called hacking sessions, but a lot of them has been just talking. So it's kind of exciting to finally dive into the coding in the coming weeks. So I've set up the GitHub repo. People are sending me their usernames. I'm going to add them. I want to add some stuff in the README as well, just to I want a really strong README so that if someone comes across the GitHub repo, they can quickly get up to speed and don't have to necessarily watch the YouTube videos. And then I'm going to hack on that a bit this week before the hacking session, just so that in the hacking session, we can do some kind of more productive coding than maybe, figuring out which repos we want to use and stuff. And so that's going really well. I think we've got we've had I'd say maybe as many as 8 people across the different hacking sessions. So I've kind of been reaching out to people with messages to try and, remind them of it and just get a really strong core team working on it. So I think it's going in the right direction.
Awesome. Then, so just also to mention, if there is anybody that have any comments or thoughts on any of the agenda items, feel free to jump in. I've just been trying to move on with the agenda items as quickly as we can. So if anybody does have any comments, to jump in. Agenda item number 5 is the problem board on Trello for core contributors. So I've set up this board on Trello, essentially for laying out the different components of a problem and trying to get information condensed into a structured format so that any of the problems that we're solving, we are only solving for once, and we don't have to go around in circles in these different problems. So it's a way of trying to structure the different problems that we're solving and sort of progress at a more agile pace. So that's been set up, and these problem boards will be used in pods as well. So the different pods that we have set up will create a board for each of those pods and start solving problems during the pods. And the idea here is that through the different pods, we can solve the multiple problems that are happening that we're trying to solve in Algovera, and we can aggregate the solutions of all these and create connect the dots and create everything. Keaton, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, just a quick question on that. So just trying to solidify the concept of problems in the context of pods. So are you seeing that being more of like GitHub's issue tickets where there's specific tasks to solve, or is it more of overarching, hey, these are larger questions that we need to tackle as a group? Just kind of curious what the scope of those is.
Yeah, so the pods are more overarching, like you were saying, and then the specific tasks could be a GitHub ticket. The idea of the board is that we can lay out the different problems, and then within those different problems we can try and structure the conversation in the Trello in an async way, so that rather than being on Discord where the information is kept flowing and you might not get a solid answer into a specific question. We want to be able to lay out the different questions that are arising from a problem and have information underneath each of those, underneath each topic, rather than it being one continuous flow, essentially. And we as we were sort of looking into implementing SourceCred, we can look into how we can issue maybe a GitHub ticket for looking deeper into one of these problems, and a way of sort of measuring your research into a particular problem. So again, that's something that we need to look into. How can we connect the Trello boards and problems into GitHub issues so that we can kind of track contributions that way.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like our minds are moving in the right direction. I was thinking specifically in terms of capturing value creation. So awesome. Sounds great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. And do we have any updates on OceanDAO proposal, Richard? How is it going?
Yeah, it's all going well. I'm hoping we're not going to get some big last minute no votes, which has happened before. I think like, yeah, we've got very few no votes at the moment. I think we're something like maybe 8th or 9th in the rankings. This round was really undersubscribed, so only like half the prize money was requested, and so that means maybe people would be kinder to the projects that did submit. So yeah, unless we get some really big last minute no votes, I think we look okay. And there's less than 12 hours left, I think. I still have to put in my votes as well. So yeah, I mean, like some projects did get like hundreds of thousands of no votes, so it's not out of the question that we don't get it, but fingers crossed everything looks good.
Great. Awesome. So we're at the last point for the agenda items of updates. Did anybody want to add anything else for updates of what we did last week? Anything else that comes to mind?
I don't think
cool.
So.
We can move on to plans then. So plans for this week is that first of all, we want to, this is sort of the agenda item number 5, which is testing SourceCred. And we essentially want to test it in a closed environment first and see everything is working as intended, and set up the different flows that we want to, we want for SourceCred and for Algovera. And once we're happy with the testing, we can start looking into rolling it out for the wider Algovera community and incorporating into Algovera. That was agenda item number 5.
On that, yeah. Do you need like credentials for the Algovera GitHub page and all that sort of stuff? Just let me know what you need and I can send it on.
Yeah, I think so. I was going to mention this as well. Yeah, I think we need credentials, and if it's Keaton that is setting it up, it might be worth just touching base with Keaton on that.
I can give you.
Yeah, I'll touch base. Yeah, we'll need the API token, and we'll also need to add a secret to link up the actions. But yes, I'll loop in with you as we're saying that up.
Yeah, just in general, I guess like password management and stuff. Maybe we could come up with a solution for that. Like I'm happy to give everyone passwords for all of whatever accounts you want and stuff. So I don't know what the safest way to do that is.
Yeah, go on, Keaton.
I mean, I was just going to say like probably industry standards, probably just like a shared password manager, like 1Password, locked down with 2FA at an organizational level. But yeah, that might be worthwhile setting up sooner rather than later. So we're like, don't have just like a Google Doc of like how else. So maybe looking into like a shared password manager might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas for which password manager?
I've used 1Password before, just the number 1Password. I really like it. They do a good job of not only management, but like suggesting passwords, but there's a ton like LastPass out there. So, but my experience with this is with 1Password, and it was perfectly adequate.
Awesome. Yeah, we can look into that maybe this week as well as something that we need to do, because that's probably something that we should have from the get-go is to have good cybersecurity hygiene in terms of the organization at an organizational level before it gets a massive problem. So from the get-go. Then let me see. Just so is there anything else more on that? Anybody want to chat about? No.
Just like the side note in terms of getting SourceCred set up, I mentioned this in Trello board, but there's definitely opportunities to expand beyond the core plugins. So maybe just keep an eye out as we're implementing that. Where is value being created and what do we want to add for plugins? But just food for thought as we move forward with that.
Yeah. Keaton did mention additional things that we can add on top of SourceCred because it's an open source project, and we can add to the code if whatever is needed for the data science workflow, or whatever is needed for our workflow, we can always build on top of that. So yeah, again, like Keaton said, just to keep that on our back of our minds.
It would be cool as well. Like just keep an eye out for things that don't exist. Like it's great to like get up to speed on existing tools. That's the exact way that I think we should start. But I also don't think we should restrict ourselves to existing tools. And just because every other DAO is doing it some way doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way. And like that's the case with things like voting. Using tokens for voting and stuff. Like nearly every DAO does that, but a lot of people say that that's actually not the best way to do it. And so yeah, just like if we can think from first principles on exactly what we want to do as much as possible, just keep that in mind while we're doing it, I suppose.
Exactly. And like most things, is going to be an iterative process. So once we implement whatever is out there at the minute, we might realize that there is something missing for our particular use case, and we just need to identify that and build for that. So yeah, I agree with you there totally. Okay, then so agenda item number 1 in the plans is the Algovera Handbook. So we are planning to have a handbook that's publicly available online, which would outline the core activities of Algovera. So it would be a sort of an introduction into what Algovera does, any background information that one needs to know in order to get started with Algovera, and sort of any sort of information for somebody new, or even somebody within the community that wants to explore a different side of Algovera. It's just a documentation to guide them through that. It is separate from the Notion, because the Notion Notion is more like a database where it stores all the sort of records of things that we've done in terms of, past town halls, past conversations like Juntos and hacking sessions, and then also like sort of basic information about the projects that are going on and so on. So you can separate it into those two different things, and the handbook has one specific purpose of getting people up to speed with Algovera. So myself and Keaton and Richard will probably also contribute to that in deciding what should go in there and like how to set it up. We've looked at a tool called, I think it's Docusaurus, that has a really nice layout for documentation of a handbook. So we'll probably be implementing in that, but the actual content of it has to be sort of decided on. So we probably get started on that this week as well. Anything else to add from anybody there? No. Okay, cool. Another thing that we want to research as well is researching basic sort of information and gathering on fair launches. This is something that we want to look into down the line, where we can open up like the Algovera a token to the wider community and anyone at large to help our mission essentially. And this is an option that's different to sort of a VC funded mechanism, where it's sort of limited to a handful of few investors. We think a mission like Algovera's should have an open funding mechanism. Anyone and everyone can participate in contributing to its success. So a fair launch seems like a good model for this, and we're sort of starting to look at gathering information for this to get a better idea of how it's done. So Richard and I'll have take a look at that. And Richard, you kind of mentioned what's going to be happening in the hacking sessions this week. Is there anything else that you want to add to this week's hacking session that you didn't previously mention?
Yeah, I guess in terms of details, we came up with a plan for the type of data set that we were going to train on. And so like the model we're using is called StyleGAN2. It's by NVIDIA. And basically what you do is you train on a data set of samples, and then you can kind of look in between samples in what's called the latent space. So you could have, like, if you trained on a face data set, you could have combinations of different faces and stuff like that. And so we're slightly limited in computation is the issue. So we thought we could use something like CryptoPunks, which have a low amount of pixels and therefore require less computation. Plus, it's really interesting it might be interesting to crypto people if we, can come up with variations of CryptoPunks or something that's like almost like a dreamy artistic effects on top of CryptoPunks is kind of what I'm expecting. And so, yeah, that's the plan. We're going to create an image data set for that, put it on the Ocean Marketplace, train StyleGAN2, and then kind of explore this space in between CryptoPunks and see if we can find anything that's visually interesting, that or like some sort of artistic style or something like that. Yeah, so that's the plan.
Cool. Quick question on the compute stuff. I know some folks in Discord we're talking about potentially training on some AWS credits folks had lying around. Do you know if there's concrete plans in terms of where we're going to get those compute resources from? Have those conversations developed? Do we need to set aside like budget for that? I'm just curious about what the plan is for that.
Yeah, we're dependent at the moment on Robin from Data Union, who like I'm very close with. Obviously, we don't want to be dependent on him forever. He got some credits for the Outlier Ventures Accelerator that he took part in. So he's not actually paying for it. He's just got a lot to spare. And it's also in his interest to get data scientists working on problems, and especially problems that he's interested in future. One of them would be like the face anonymization algorithms. And so there's a bit of like tit for tat. So like he's getting something from it and we're getting something from it as well. And so I think it's a good short-term solution. I don't really have a good solution to it. I think it's just going to cost money, basically. I'm like quite a lot. So I don't think data scientists are going to want to pay for compute either. So I think we may have to cover it and just take the hit in the expectation that it'll actually be worth more to Algovera than we put in terms of computation. But if we could, enforce a kind of a culture of being careful with just using computation all the time, which is how data scientists are kind of brought up at the moment, is like just make sure that you're using those GPUs all the time, and like if it's coming up to the weekend, you'll like run a really long training run and stuff. And so in this new using this new private AI tech, I think we need to be a bit more kind of you need to budget your computation a bit more, I would say. So, but yeah, we need to fix this problem still. We just have a short-term solution, and we're going to see how it goes. And then, we need to come up with a plan for the longer term.
I think that's a good topic to have a longer conversation on and try and like brainstorm and problem solve for that. Definitely one of the key aspects of the operations at Algovera. So it'll be critical to find a good solution for that.
There's a lot of places you can apply for like credits and stuff. So like it kind of ties in with funding. When we're writing funding proposals, maybe we could apply for a lot of credits from all of these different cloud providers and stuff.
Awesome. Something again to come back to. And then last point is Keaton sort of brought up. It would be good to incentivize people that are that are participating in hacking sessions with some sort of reward, and it seems that like a POAP would be an ideal token to give to the people that have attended the hacking session. So me and Richard were chatting about this, where we were saying, is it better to give a token for each session, or is it better to give a token for people who participated in at least one hacking session? We sort of came to the conclusion of saying that it might be best to give it to people that have at least contributed to one hacking session. At the same time, it doesn't take a lot of effort to mint it for each session.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Just like making sure folks, have something to show from these hacking sessions. Again, trying to like maybe look back into the idea of where is this value being created and how do we start to begin to measure that? And I think like showing, like we've talked about, showing up to hacking sessions, different things get done, but it does seem like from what I've seen, there's value being added in there. So I think, I think POAP for having contributed to at least one hacking session sounds like a great idea.
The other thing we could do is we could like add some sort of like star to the POAP. Like if you attended 5 hacking sessions, you could have 5 stars on your POAP or something like that.
Yeah, I was wondering how that might look, like tiered POAPs for increased participation.
Maybe it's overcomplicating it, I guess.
The thing with POAP is like if you're creating multiple different POAPs, then you'll have to create multiple different events, I think. So it means like, it'll be the same work as doing, minting one token per session, and distributing that token for that session. It'll be the same amount of work doing that and minting multiple different tokens, I think, and then distributing it according to what that person has contributed. So, excuse me. So it's doable to do like one token per session, but the only like the possible downside is that it kind of dilutes the value of the token itself. If you have a token that says yes, I've attended at least one, you'll have there's a limited supply of a particular token, and then if you have like say we have to do 6 sessions, there'll be 6 different types of tokens, and the actual supply of what that one person will have will be a lot more. So the perceived value of it might not be as high. So that's the only other thing that I would add to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like maybe for this particular hacking session, like let's maybe give a shot at doing, let's say if you participate in at least one, you get the POAP, and then if people aren't thinking that adequately captures value, we can sort of revisit. But yeah, I think that makes sense for
Awesome.
the initial application here.
Cool. I can set up the POAP for that and start minting it. Be a basic design I've done before, and it'll be adequate for the POAP, I think.
Cool.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we want to mention for this week? That's it.
Just about funding, were we going to say very quickly?
Yes. So I think we were just touching on that with the fair launch. Is that we want to start looking at alternative funding mechanisms to start scaling the operations at Algovera. So right now we're sort of reliant on OceanDAO community, on OceanDAO grants, but we want to also start thinking medium to long term and how we can start hiring people to basically scale with the operations of Algovera, and as the operations of Algovera increases, we'll need to have more hands on deck. And if we've identified different tools that we want to build, we'll have to start hiring engineers and so on. So a good adequate like treasury and runway for the team is a really important thing to keep it sustainable. So yeah, we also wanted to just look at fundraising as well.
Yeah, and even like another short-term solution is to apply for different grants to OceanDAO as well, like whether that's Filecoin or some of these other projects. Obviously, like you have to write a grant proposal for each one, so like there's probably quite a lot of overhead in terms of writing these documents, but maybe you can reuse a lot. But it's something that I can explore in the coming weeks anyway, and reach out to other people to see what sort of other grants have they applied for apart from Ocean, and maybe we could drop some in.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea, and it's something that we should start looking into is the different grants that we're eligible for. Okay, awesome. I think that concludes everything for this week's town hall. Is there any feedback on how it was run this time around? I think it was a lot more structured and like straight to the point when it's more of a updation and projection into this week. I think all the other conversations that we need to have, and we've identified like some things like talking about the computation as an agenda item that needs to be talked in more depth. So it's good to identify those things and propose a time for that later on the week. But I like this as like a quick way of getting everyone up to speed. Any other thoughts, comments, feedback on?
How was timing, do you think?
I think half an hour is more than adequate. If anybody had any more points and additional side notes, there was plenty of time to allocate for that. I think these town halls should be like 45 to 1 hour max. So it's good that we're under the time, because we'll have more things to discuss as we start rolling out some of these features and some of these different operations that we want to start. So we'll have more agenda items as we progress. So the actual like length of it, I think might start increasing, but we should try and cap it at like 45, 1 hour max. It's usually like the peak attention time for people anyway. So anything more than that, like people will just zone out. So yeah, I think timing wise, it's okay. Maybe we were a little bit under the time because of the agenda items that we had was fewer compared. Well, that will be compared to like in the coming weeks.
I think because there's only 3 of us as well. If you add another 3 people, that probably takes an hour just by the time you get a comment on each thing, each agenda item. So yeah, I think it works.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And maybe one other thing is like maybe we should try and spread the agenda items a lot earlier than on the day. So ideally, if we can like do it on Friday, and then people have more time to look at the agenda item and see if they want to go or not. So that's partly my fault. So I think we can try and like set up the agendas for Friday and send it into the channel for Friday so that people have the weekend to like look at the agenda items, see if they want to join the town hall.
Yeah, I also think that we could use shared docs more than we are currently. Like even just for note taking and stuff, I was thinking it might be handy to have a shared doc for the hacking sessions, for example, where we can keep track of, action items and things like that. Maybe not necessary for the town hall because it already has an agenda. So there might not be too much extra to add in terms of notes. I guess
there is, sorry to interrupt, Richard. There is a feature I saw on like Google Calendar now where you can add notes on. I don't know if that syncs with anybody that's attending the event as well. My intuition is that that anybody that is attending the event will have access to that note as well. So it's like a nice way of keeping notes that everybody keep track of, so you don't have to keep inviting people to the docs.
I think it would be nice to have processed the raw videos into bullet points and stuff, just for people who don't have the time to watch an hour on YouTube. Even if you can like speed it up, it would be handy if you could just see a list of bullet points that you could read in 5 minutes or something like that. Yeah,
I think so too. So we can look into that maybe a little bit and see if we can trial it out for the hacking session on Thursday and see if that works. Just a few bullet points and see if that works.
What we could just say to people is, like if we just drop a link in the chat to the shared doc, I think people will naturally add notes and like want to be helpful during it, because a lot of the time people drop links in chat and stuff like that. And so maybe if we could just direct them to a shared doc, which we could then, make available to others.
Yeah, that could also work, sort of crowdsourcing the notes essentially. That could also be very useful. And I think the way of just having, so if you go into Google Calendar now, there should be a thing for taking notes now, like an option for taking notes. So if we direct people to say, look, feel free to like take notes on this link, or the link that's accompanied by the event for the notes in the calendar. So everybody will have the same one document, and everybody should be able to edit and view that one document. So that could work. We can like discuss that a little bit more before the hacking sessions on Thursday. Awesome.
Great.
Okay, that's it. Do you want to stop the recording now then?
Stop.